Randolph Ramsey is the editor of online gaming website GameSpot, and he joins me now. How significant is this agreement to introduce an R18 plus rating for video games here?
Thanks for that, Kim. It's obviously a fairly big day for us gamers. We have been asking for an adult classification for games for many years now. So what this decision actually does is bring us into line with a lot of other Western developed nations in having an adult classification for adult games.
And so what sort of material does that mean would be allowed to be sold here in Australia?
Obviously stuff with, I guess, high-level violent or sexual content. So before, a lot of that content was pushed into the lower MA15 category, which meant that players 15 age 15 could actually go into shops and buy those type of things. But now with the R18 classification, you'll need to be 18 and over to get those games.
Well, some parents are still very worried about this because they say, look, R18 plus, if it means more violent, more sexual content coming into the country, what if my son or daughter is over at their mate's place and getting access to that sort of thing?
Well, what it actually means, it doesn't mean that more violent or more sexually orientated games will actually come into Australia. What it actually does mean, it'll just actually align our classification better to what the actual content is. So on average nowadays, we're getting maybe 2 or 3 games banned a year, if that. So it's not going to be a floodgate of new games. It'll just have games that are better classified and have better information about what content is in there.
How quickly do you think this new classification is going to be put into place?
Well, I think the Federal Minister has said that he wants something in place before the end of the year, so it'll obviously be a few months before we see anything concrete happening.
Now, the New South Wales government abstained from this. Why and what does that mean?
I think the Attorney General, Greg Smith, I guess used the reason that they are a fairly new government in New South Wales. This issue has been on the boil, I guess, for about 10 years now. So I guess their reasoning was, they wanted to, take a more reasoned approach to what's actually happening here. I think what they indicated at today's SCAG meeting, though, is that, that they are willing to take a look at this issue quite quickly and make a decision within the next few weeks.
Is there any possibility that different states could still have different classifications, though? Could states try to amend this national classification to suit what they think is appropriate?
It's a very real possibility. So along the lines of what we see now with film and movies, where we have an X-rated rating in the ACT Northern Territory, you could see a fracture, I guess, of national classification. South Australia, for example, have already said that they accept the R18 rating, but they want to get rid of the MA15 rating. So essentially anything that comes across into South Australia that is MA15 now, the Attorney General, John Roy, basically wants to put an R18 sticker and make it a more adult rating.
And so how frustrating would that be if we start to get, after pushing for a national classification system for video games, if the states fracture and you have different rules in different states?
I think it'll be obviously very confusing for the end consumer. I think a lot of the burden will actually fall on retailers because it'll be up to them to actually maintain this policy. So while there is a national infrastructure, I guess, for this, it's up to the states to actually police it on the state level. So if there's a possibility that it actually fractures, it's going to become very confusing.
Well, Randolph Ramsey, thank you very much for coming in this afternoon.
Thank you, Kim.